Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode 118. How are we doing today? First of all, I just wanted to say thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. We're back off the road, back from the RV trip. We haven't podcasted for 3 weeks. It's been super refreshing taking a break, and I'm ready to get behind this mic and give another awesome episode.
Yeah, we have a great episode for everybody that's tuning in. We are going to talk about how to manage your finances as a nurse, and that's going to incorporate and figure out how much you actually get paid, your bills, and where your actual money is going and where it should go into. So first, at the top of our head is managing your finances. So probably the biggest thing when you first get that nurse's paycheck and you take a look at it, besides the nice money amount on it,
Right.
you're going to have the net and the gross on it as well. That's probably the most and a key topic that we're going to talk about. If you're going to turn off this podcast in the next 10, 15 minutes, at least understand this portion. So when you get paid as a nurse, you get the gross pay and then you also have the net pay. So the gross is always going to be before you get taxed, and your net is with your taxes subtracted, and the net is the amount that you actually get paid versus the amount that you report on your taxes. You report both on your taxes, but the net is the one you actually see.
Yeah, and this is the same thing when it comes to travel nursing. You're always looking at the net because that's the paycheck that's going to be coming on Fridays.
Take home.
And if you want to go on a more in-depth episode about finances, episode 105, Getting Out of Debt with Allie Gortland, it was great on that. Because we're not going to go into 401ks or Roths or what you should invest in. That's an episode for 105.
Yeah, we're just gonna briefly go over the basics, not getting too much. And Allie did a great job in episode 105 on speaking on how to pay off debt, what you should pay off first, and she goes deep into where your money should go and where you should allocate your funds.
Yeah, and Peter and I, no one taught us really how to manage finances. It was all by trial and error, doing it ourselves. Like
Even in school,
parents, same thing. They're immigrants. They didn't know any better. They had that poor man's mentality in a way. And I'm thankful for like little high school professors or teachers that like taught us how to write a check, and we started kind of getting into that tracking and start developing those good habits that ultimately helped us save and make moves that we're doing now.
yeah, the biggest financial advice that Matt and I have received from our parents isn't on how to invest or how to grow your money. It was always to get a job and save, and spend minimally.
Yeah,
Your
post
savings
World
should
War
always,
II.
yeah, your savings should always be the top priority, because they always thought about the future. Because when they grew up in Poland, they didn't have much money, so they had to always worry about the next day, the next week. So luckily, we got that teaching. Not a lot of people have that. We've been pretty fortunate growing up. Our parents weren't the wealthiest people, and they've come a long way from where they are now. But the one thing that they always instilled in us was always save, and a mentality stay with us through childhood, because we
Yeah.
grew up in that low income level, so we didn't have much to work with, and that taught us how to save, luckily.
Right. In a good way. But if you look at it now, that saving is not the best thing if you look at the dollar. So if you're somebody that's listening that has some money put aside and already like went through the steps and wants a refresher, well, prior to that, in 2021, where the government's printing out money like crazy. So there's going to be a lot of inflation. So if you're trying to do something with your money, if you have a lot of saved, put it into assets. Because that dollar is losing value as time is going right now with the way the government's printing money.
Especially with saving, if your percentage of interest that you have in your savings account, if that doesn't cover at least the cost of inflation, or a percentage of inflation is going to change, there's really no point of you keeping it in a savings account. And you're just basically using a storage, because technically it's losing value as time goes on. Because if your interest in your bank account, your savings is like 0.9%, and inflation is 1.2% or whatever, then guess what? You're losing that 0.3% every year of your money, and you're not that you should spend it, but you're technically better off spending it now than having it, for later.
Yeah.
But you should always have that nice cushion, that reserve. And one thing that goes into also realizing how much money you make is the best thing to do and realize how much you actually make is to make it a month-to-month basis. So if you get paid bi-weekly, you get paid twice a week. Let's say you make $2K weekly, right? So you get 2 paychecks a month. So that's $4,000 that you're going to be making that month. Figure out how much money you make and make it a month-to-month basis, not really week-to-week, because week-to-week is going to be really hard to keep up with, because instead of doing your finances once a month or every quarter or every 3 months or however you deem fit, you're gonna be doing it every week, and it just gets time consuming, and it just becomes a pain in the ass. Then you stop doing it. Ideally, that is the best situation. If you could break it down to weekly, that's ideal, but most of us can't, and you don't really need to.
Yeah, and I'll be on the other crazy side. So when I was travel nursing for the past 2 years, that's literally how I've been treating my spending. So like my travel nursing contract is my financial trip. So I literally go from week one on my Apple Notes, write down everything I spent, and then once my paychecks start coming in, I start putting in dates and finding out how much I'm making, how much I'm spending, and how much I'm profiting from my paychecks every single week. So then let's just say if my goal is to save, let's just say $5,000, and I'm not reaching my goal, I have to know I have to cut costs week to week basis in order to reach that goal. So it's a little bit better if you want to really stay on top of it. And a perfect metaphor, it's like trying to lose weight or gain weight. If you want to make sure you're going to gain weight, you got to be hitting the calories. So if you're tracking your macros, you are bound for success. Same thing this way. If you're spending it week to week, you're bound for success.
Yeah, and that's obviously the ideal way to do it. And if you're new to travel nursing and you're not sure, hey, if you're getting paid enough, that's the best way to gauge it. Usually, your first contract is always going to be the hardest one because you're first learning on how to do things. And if you manage your finances the way Matt does, you can actually see and actually tell people, hey, the money I was making in, let's say, Chicago, where I lived, is 20% less than what I make at travel nursing in Idaho. Right. But you have to do that math. And you have to also keep up with your expenses. And if you want to figure out week to week like Matt does, that's what you have to do. It's pretty time consuming, but then when you get into a flow, it takes up less time. But it's still something that you would definitely be doing on every purchase, on an everyday kind of mentality.
Yeah, and if you're trying to do that, I recommend just staying on top of it. So for example, if I'm shopping, my Apple Notes is open in my like finances section. And it's in there before I hit the store. So then when I'm paying, I see the total, I quickly add it, put in my card. While that's processing, I'm putting in the digits, and I'm already done. So that saves me that time instead of at the end of the week, I have to go through statements and then it starts creating and becoming a chore. And then I want to do less of it. So this prevents me to stay on top and to actually find some joy in it.
Another key thing to consider when you're managing your finances is your bills. Yeah. How much do you actually spend on bills? So rent, mortgage, car note, food, accessories, subscriptions, all of that. Because you know you have that paycheck coming in bi-weekly of $2,000 or whatever, but you have to negate some of that to your living expenses. And your living expenses are something that you always have to pay for because you can't live without these things. And yeah, you make $2K net, but you also have to subtract the utilities and all those bills to actually see how much money you're actually working with. Right. And how much you actually have to toss around, move around, and actually enjoy.
Especially with like the subscriptions, like Apple has a few of it, storage, you got Gaia, you're paying for Spotify, Netflix, like all this stuff adds up. So if you're trying to save, I think that's like the first thing, just like you mentioned, you should go through, look at your damn expenses and cut the things that you don't need. Like for example, Hulu, I think we're paying that for the past like 6 months on our like finance or a business account, and we haven't deleted it yet. That's like a reoccurring charge of $7. And over those 6 months, hey, that's like that's like $50 we could have saved.
Yeah, I deleted it, by the way.
Solid.
Yeah, plane. I got you, man.
Thanks for letting me know on the podcast.
Yeah. That's just so that way you're not thinking about it, stressed out.
For sure.
You know? Yeah, trying to stay afloat over here.
Right.
Yeah. So great. You're trying to manage your finances as a nurse. You know how much you make on a monthly basis. You also know how much bills you have and how much you're paying. Next step would be to make a budget. And that literally starts with taking your net income, subtracting your necessary expenses, which is going to be all your bills, all your leisure things that you always have to have, your internet, all that, and whatever you have left over, that is going to be allocated to other things in your budget. So the two main things to always do is subtract how much you make from the necessities of life. And then you can start throwing money in different places and actually making a budget. So you're going to budget the amount of money that you have left over. A lot of times you should allocate a percentage to savings, to your checking account, a percentage to maybe investments, and your 401k. Do you have a 401k that's with your employer, or are you going to do that 401k somewhere else?
Right. Another great way to look at this big picture is I highly recommend looking at Excel, creating a spreadsheet for yourself, break down the months and the weeks and put everything in there, all your recurring expenses, and then see how you can save things, And a perfect example is like, let's just say there's $4,000 a month. So you know that $1,600 of that is your utilities. That is 40%. Mortgage, rent, ComEd, internet, those are non-negotiable. Then you have to eat. how much are your groceries? Let's just say there's $600. There's 15% of that. How much are you willing to save? Let's just say when I save 25% of that, that's $1,000 you could put away a month. And then, of course, you're probably going to be going out and there's leisure. So put 10% there, put 10% there, and that's your budget.
It's really not that hard to do. It's not difficult. It's just that it takes time. And looking at spreadsheets isn't the most exciting thing.
Especially as a nurse.
Yes. But guess what? You passed nursing school, which is a lot harder to do than this whole budgeting situation. So if you could pass nursing school, you could for sure make yourself a budget. It's just time consuming and it's a little bit boring. But do it sooner than later because it's going to help you out a lot in the future. That's just part of being an adult.
Yeah,
because
I
there's
think
no
it
more
levels you up.
there's no more mommy and daddy, paying the bills for you. There's no more mommy and daddy paying the bills for you and you just saving up to buy a place or to buy a car and all that stuff. So it's time for you to take responsibility and do this. And trust me, do this sooner or later because then you're going to be so much wiser, so much smarter with your money, and you're going to have more money than you thought. Because when people don't manage their finances properly or accordingly, nurses somehow go broke or don't have enough money to do certain things. And I figured out like, hey, how is this nurse struggling, living at home, and I'm here, living in the condo and paying, association and all these bills. How am I able to be financially fine? And this other nurse living at home is not.
Yeah.
Why? Because I took the time out of my life to make a simple spreadsheet, just write down how much I make and what I need to spend on, and then that's it. And then you figure it out from there. Finances are a lot more important than you might think, and a lot of people put them off, but just do them. And then if you're the kind of person that likes looking at numbers, like managing finances, well, guess what? It's gonna be a lot easier for you. And then you could always allocate money to play around with like Robinhood or stocks or even further your investment and have some of your money in a more riskier asset to kind of mess around with and make you money in the future.
Right. And now that you have this big picture and now you know how much money you can save, what are you going to be saving for? So some people save to invest in future things, and some people are paying off their debt. If you're in that situation, more than likely you finished nursing school for 4 years, you got some loans, right? How much money are you willing to put away? How fast are you willing to pay that off so the interest rate doesn't catch up to you?
And a debt-free nurse does a great job on Instagram to help people pay off their credit card debt, their student loans. She has processes that she offers on how you should take it because a lot of people have multiple loans, right? So trying to figure out which one to pay off first, it's really, really hard to do and be efficient at. So the debt-free nurse does a really good job. Also, episode number, was it 105?
Yeah.
We also talk about paying off debt. But the easiest way to pay off debt, the way I looked at it, is always pay out the high interest ones first because that's the ones that's eating most of your money. And I would take advantage of credit cards, but use your credit card as a debit card. The beauty of credit cards is that they offer points and rewards, which a debit card doesn't offer. So some of them offer 2% back on certain purchases, 5% back quarterly on certain things like gas and food. And you could use that as at the end of the year to put more cash in your bank account because debit card is not going to give you anything. But the thing is, use the credit card like a debit card. So if you have $100 in your checking account, don't spend $150 on your credit card just because you can.
Right.
Use it as a debit card. And that is also going to put you a step higher than probably amongst your friends and a lot of people in society where they just keep buying things under credit card and keep acquiring interest and just debt, and they can never get out of there.
That's the revolving door, man. And the credit cards are tricky for that. And like if you're, if you paid off your credit cards and all that, you want to worry about your debt, whether that's like a mortgage or student loans. Like understand that there's interest and principal, like let's just say your mortgage is $500, but there's an interest rate of like 4.75%. I'm not going to do math here, so don't quote me on these numbers. Let's just say you have a $500 mortgage, your principal is $400, but $100 is interest. So you're only paying off your mortgage $400 a month because that $100 is that freaking interest rate on that mortgage. So if you divide that number and then you're paying $2.50 a day, that starts adding up. You want to get rid of that. So make it your focus, maybe sacrifice not purchasing that car this year or whatever it is and get that paid off because it could save you a lot of money in the long run if you look at it like that.
Exactly. Just because it tells you, hey, all you need to pay is this much, you don't have to. You could pay $100 more, $200 more to pay off quicker. But of course, there is some mortgages or certain loans that you have to take the 12 months to pay off. I would definitely avoid those because ideally the sooner you pay it off, the less you're paying in the long run. Like Matt said, because the interest just eats away your money.
Yeah.
And never pay the minimal, because if you pay the minimal on a credit card, you're not paying off that product in full. Like Matt's saying with his mortgage. Not everyone has a mortgage. So I'm trying to bring something more into tune with people that know mortgages. So like credit card, just because your minimum payment is $50 doesn't mean you should pay the $50. If your current balance says $1,000 and your minimum payment is $50, that's not gonna do too much to the actual balance that you have. A lot of that's gonna go to interest, and it's revolving.
Right.
So now you're gonna get every month you're gonna pay an interest because you're not paying off the actual thing. And some people just pay interest and they never actually pay off the product or the thing that they took out the loan for, or the thing they used the credit card for. And that's crazy, because I'm not sure who it was, one of my friends or something, he was telling me how much he pays, and I took a look at his statement, and I'm like, yo, like only like 10% of this payment is going towards the actual cost of what you bought. Like you're getting screwed here. And he's like, oh, I never thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, just because it tells you the minimal how much you pay and they recommend you paying this much doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and it's wild that our educational system doesn't give us the proper, like our high school education should have a curriculum for finances. But you make more money off people like that. Yeah. And let's just say you want to borrow money, or you need some money to make some moves for yourself, purchase a car and things like that. One cool way to do it is you could purchase a credit card or apply for one that, let's just say, gives you 0% APR for 12 months. So now, if your credit card limit is, $3,000, you could actually load that card up and, acquire no interest for 3 months. If, let's just say, you need something for a year and purchase like a MacBook and you want to leave it on there. So that's another smart way to do it. And if you're taking a loan out for things, well, you're going to run into credit score. And it's really important to understand like this 3-digit number, because it actually impacts how lenders are giving you money. And the rule of thumb is higher your credit score, the better percentages and better perks you get when it comes to taking out a loan.
All right. Yeah, and I have a little graph here that I'm taking a look at, so I'll read off it. This is according to mybanktracker.com regarding the FICO credit scores. So a number between 750 and 850 is considered excellent. 700, 750 is going to be good. 650 and 699 is going to be fair. And then anything basically below 650, it's considered bad. And if you go even lower, it's very bad. And that's why there's a difference when you go get a loan versus your friend. Because if your friend has his credit score of 620, he's going to get a higher interest because he's not as good of a candidate as somebody that has a credit score of 700. Where they're going, instead of getting 5% on the 620, you come in with a 700, you get 2% or 1%. That's where the difference is. And it's kind of tricky because coming out of nursing school, you're not going to have a big credit line. So you might not even have an accurate credit score, even have a credit score coming out of school. You're going to need to build up that credit. That's why you should get that credit card early on, but use it as a debit card. That way you're building credit throughout these coming months or these coming years.
Yeah, and if you're a nursing student that's listening to this, when you get something in the mail that says apply for the student credit card, get it. Because that's going to be a factor that's going to build your credit score.
But be smart with it.
Be smart with it. If you only put 20, 50 bucks, 100 bucks on it, just do it, because that's going to benefit. That's building up your credit score already early on when you're 18, 19, 20.
Yeah. And I bank with Chase. So luckily with Chase, I have my credit score accessible all the time, and it even tells it how it's changed over last month, the last year, how it's trending, what has affected it. Like, was I late on a payment that dropped it down 2 points, and so on and so forth. That's cool to look at. And I still don't even 100% know how they actually come up with this number. It's just something people use for financing and for credit. Yeah, it's there, and people look at it all the time. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it's an algorithm, but mostly depends on bills. Are they paid on time? If you missed a payment, they blocked your account, that's going to come into factor. If you have a credit card that you never paid for, how quickly are you paying off your debt? If you're risky, where you're having a 6,000 credit card limit and you're always almost maxing out that limit every single month, that's going to affect your credit score, because you're risky for investors to put a loan out.
And if you are always hitting like your maxes, I would highly recommend reaching out to your credit company and ask if you could have a higher one.
Yes.
So if your max is 6K and you're always have monthly worth of money spent is 5,500, ask them to bump it down up to like 7,500 or 8K, because like Matt said, you're gonna keep hitting that roof, and people are gonna be thinking that you're not that you can't afford to pay out these things and you're using credit all the time.
Yeah, it's a great little hack.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that. It's all you really do is if you have Chase Discover, you click a button on the settings and it already asks them for you. If you get approved, they send you an email or they just bump it up on the spot.
Yeah, luckily I got lucky when I was younger, and when I was 20 years old, I took a loan out, so my credit score has always been great. Like I've never had issues with anything I was doing.
Yeah, I got a credit card when I was 18, and my parents told me to get the credit card, but get a decent one and always treat it as a debit card, and that's what I did. So technically, I've had credit since I was 18 years old. But of course, when I was 19 years old, it still says I don't have a credit score. Why? Even though I had it for a year, I was only making purchases of like $50 a month on that. So it takes time.
Yeah.
You know, and the sooner you do it, the better off you are. But you just spending $50 a month isn't going to build your credit up real fast. But still, at least they have something. And then when you become a nurse and when you actually start spending some money, then your credit's going to be built quicker and quicker.
Exactly. Best way to wrap it up. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode where we talked how to manage finances. This is a great episode, understanding the pay, how to save, how to make goals, and understanding your credit score.
We're also going to link the show notes and the Debt Free Nurse in our show notes in this episode and in all the platforms that you guys are listening to.
And for any more information from us, couplenurses.com and wearefrontlinewarriors.com.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.